Discover the sinister secrets of a haunted house. 7 spine-chilling tales you must watch tonight. Jessica felt a shiver race down her spine as she entered her new home in the quaint suburban neighborhood of Maple Creek. The cheerful yellow paint seemed at odds with the darkness that loomed over her fresh start. Just days into settling in with her children, Ethan and Lily, she sensed something was off. As shadows elongated with the setting sun, eerie whispers echoed in the corners of her mind. This house had a history, one that twisted around her like a cold fog. She tried to ignore the soft thuds beneath the floorboards, the lurking dread that followed her through the hallways. Maybe it was just the stress of moving, the weight of single motherhood. But when a neighbor casually mentioned the unfortunate events that had taken place in her house, panic gripped her. The laughter of children playing outside felt distant, muffled by the chill that enveloped her like a shroud. Was it folklore? Just tales meant to frighten kids? Or was something lurking behind those smiles in the neighborhood, something sinister? Jessica dismissed the warning, but the whispers grew louder, echoing into the deep of night. They were quiet arguments, filled with anguish and dread. Her heart raced as she lay in bed, an overwhelming sense of being watched gnawing at her. Then came the tapping, a sinister, rhythmic scraping against her bedroom window like nails against glass. Trembling, she yanked the curtains aside and found only the suffocating dusk outside. She needed help, but when she summoned the courage to reach out to the local authorities, they dismissed her fears with condescending chuckles. "You've got an overactive imagination, ma'am," one officer said, his laughter ringing hollow. Exhausted by isolation, Jessica began to delve deeper into the unsettling past of her home, uncovering accounts of other families that had fled the neighborhood in terror. Each story hung in the air like a foul stench, twisting her stomach. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Stumbling upon a revered local priest's connection to her home, a shiver raced through her. The kind man preached comfort to the community, but could he be hiding something dark beneath his benevolent facade? The corners of Jessica's mind twisted. She felt ensnared in a web of deceit. Late one night, panic flooded her as shadows shifted, creeping across the room, ghostly forms whispering secrets that turned her blood cold. And then, with a creak, her bedroom door swung open, inviting something unknown into the sanctuary she had fought so hard to establish. Her heart thundered, and in that moment, she knew she wasn't just battling the haunted remnants of a home, but also the lurking, hidden fears of a community draped in darkness. As she reached for her children, the stakes couldn't be higher. Would she find the strength to protect them from the malevolent forces that lurked both outside and within? The air grew thick with dread, and as the night fell around them, Jessica realized that something sinister had awakened, and it was hungry for more than just fear. Jessica's breath hitched as she heard a soft giggle drift through the hallway. It was an eerie, childlike sound, not her own children's. Instinctively, she turned toward the sound, heart pounding, a chill running down her back. "Ethan? Lily?" she called, her voice trembling. They were supposed to be fast asleep, cocooned in their beds, blissfully unaware of the lingering horrors that crept through the walls of their new home. The laughter faded, replaced by a low whispering. The words were indistinct, teasing, like a lure drawing her deep into the shadows. Ignoring her instincts, she stepped cautiously toward the staircase, each creak of the wood echoing ominously in the silence. The shadows twisted and danced, sparking her imagination into dark places. She felt a primal urge to retreat, but curiosity gripped her tighter than the fear. At the foot of the stairs, she hesitated. What if it was just the house settling? Or was it an echo of something long buried, something waiting, watching? With her heart lodged in her throat, she ascended slowly. The whispers grew clearer, fragmented messages sliding into her consciousness. "Help us, we're lost." The words spiraled through her mind and froze her blood. "Stop!" she shouted abruptly, as if breaking a spell. The whispers ceased. Silence fell heavy, almost suffocating. Jessica struggled to regain her steadiness, waiting for the darkness to explode back to life, for the shadows to reach out and snatch her into their depths. She reached her children's door, clutching the knob tightly. The oppressive dread surged in her chest, threatening to paralyze her, but she pushed the door open. It was just as she had left it. Lily and Ethan were fast asleep, faces serene, the innocence of childhood wrapped around them like a protective balm. But as she turned to go, a reflection caught her eye in the glass of the window, a fleeting image of a gaunt figure, pale and translucent, standing outside. Shocked, she staggered back. What the hell, she breathed, heart racing. She blinked hard, trying to shake it off, but the figure was gone, leaving her questioning her sanity. The next morning, desperation clawed at her. She needed the truth. The priest could shed light on this, or so she thought. After finding his church, she entered hesitantly. The air was musty, and the scent of wax candles hung heavily. Father Malone was kneeling at the altar, and as he turned to her, his gentle smile faltered, a shadow passing across his face. "Jessica, my dear, have you found peace?" he asked, but his eyes darted behind her, haunted. "Everything is wrong in my house," she stammered, feeling the weight of her words. "I've seen things, heard things." He stiffened. "Not everything is as it seems in Maple Creek. You must be cautious talking about these things." "Why? What has hidden?" she pressed, sensing his disquiet growing. "You are stirring winds that may awaken the past. Some things should stay buried," he said, his visage becoming grave. A wave of anger surged through her. "I can't protect my family if I don't know what is going on." The priest paused, weighing his response, his expression a mixture of sympathy and dread. "Just remember, light and darkness dwell closely together. Know that the answers you seek may come at a cost one you cannot afford." Jessica's heart raced. Unanswered questions throbbed in her mind. What was the true cost? As she exited the church, the air seemed heavier, electric with foreboding. She clutched her purse tightly. Would she risk everything to uncover the dark truths shrouding her home? As night fell again, a looming dread settled over Maple Creek, and she knew she was closer than ever to the brink of something horrific. A sound broke the silence, a child's laughter echoing from the depths of her own house, promising more than just a fleeting fright. What darkness awaited her in that home? Would she dare to discover it? Jessica's hair stood on end as the laughter rippled through the darkened hall. Dread crept back into her bones, tightening like a vice. She wanted to scream for Ethan and Lily, but fear held her tongue. Would they even hear her over that sinister giggle? Taking a deep breath, she moved cautiously toward the kitchen. The soft glow from the moon slanted through the window, casting long shadows across the room. Every step felt like a gamble, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm only she could hear. "Show yourself," she called out, anger bubbling against the icy fear that gripped her. Silence swallowed her challenge, yet an answer came in the form of whispering that trickled into the air, once more taunting, pleading. "Stay with us, don't leave." Jessica's skin prickled, awareness flooding her. "Who are you?" she whispered back, dread pooling in her belly. No response came, but the laughter returned, this time higher pitched, echoing like tiny bells. Summoning her courage, she stepped into the dim hallway, glancing down into the shadows. "I'm brave," she insisted, though the shaky tremor in her voice contradicted her words. The hallway stretched out before her, an inky void promising both answers and doom. As she crossed into the next room, a chill settled over her. Was that a small handprint on the wall? Panic flickered in her chest. She reached toward it, fingers trembling, when the sound of a door slamming ricocheted from the children's room. "Ethan! Lily!" she shouted, rushing forward, dread tightening her throat. She flung open their door. The room was a chaotic mess, toys scattered, blankets thrown. But her kids, her sweet, innocent kids, were gone. "Ethan! Lily!" she shouted, fear turning to panic. Heart racing, she scanned for any sign of them. And then, from under the bed, the soft giggle returned. The shadows beneath beckoned with whispers, a siren's call that filled her with terror. "Come play, we want to play. Get away from there," she pleaded, her voice breaking. But something pulled her, compelling her to bend down and look beneath the bed. A pair of small eyes blinked back at her, wide and glistening. "Mommy, help us." They were her children, but distorted, wrong, living in the realm of flickering lights and darkness. "No." She recoiled, the breath knocked from her lungs as the laughter turned into a cacophony of cries that bounced back and forth like a chaotic game. Fingers trembling, she stumbled backward, colliding with the dresser. The wooden frame creaked ominously. She turned to flee, but the door slammed shut on its own, locking her inside. She felt the walls closing in, suffocating her. She was trapped. "Mommy, you can't leave." The voice was chillingly sweet, a honeyed echo that turned her stomach. Gathering all her strength, Jessica shouted, "I'll find you. I'll save you." But deep down, a dreadful thought took root. Were they lost within the house, or had they become part of the malevolence that lurked here? In that split second, a flash of light flickered through the window. She turned, and her heart dropped. Outside, her shadow stood long and twisted, reaching toward her like a warning. Then, as abruptly as it began, a sudden silence fell. The shadows froze. The giggles faded, leaving only the sound of her ragged breath. But she knew something had shifted, that whatever darkness hid in her home had recoiled momentarily. With a swift motion, she charged at the door, throwing herself against it until she felt the handle jiggle and click. Jessica burst into the hallway, rushing down the stairs, but each step felt heavier, as if the house was trying to hold on to her. She burst into the living room, but something dark stood in her path, a gaunt figure with hollow eyes staring right through her. "Come join us," it whispered in a voice that echoed like a long-lost dream. Fighting to break free, she turned back toward the front door, her pulse echoing in her ears. The way out was clear, but a chilling certainty washed over her. What if she crossed the threshold and found only darkness? What if her children remained trapped? As she reached for the door, the desperate laughter sliced through the air again, the voice now pleading, desperate. The last threads of her sanity hung by a thread. Would she run, or would she plunge deeper into the heart of this nightmare to save her children? Jessica's hand trembled on the doorknob, heart pounding like a drum. The weight of the darkness loomed behind her, thick as fog, urging her to stay. The laughter morphed into a symphony of cries, calls for help echoing from the void, twisting her insides into knots. "Mommy." It was her daughter's voice again, but it felt wrong. The lilting melody warped into something sinister. With a determined shove, she flung the door open and dashed into the night, breathless, the cold air slicing her skin. Outside, the moon spilled silver light across the yard, illuminating the familiar landscape transformed into a sinister playground of shadows. Each tree loomed like a watchful sentry, and the wind whispered through the leaves, warning her to return. But Jessica pressed on. She wouldn't leave her children behind. She sprinted down the gravel driveway, the crunching stones beneath her feet a stark reminder of her reality. But behind her, an otherworldly pull tugged at her mind, a siren's song beckoning her back to the house. "Mommy, don't go." The voices chimed, layered with innocence and malice. Suddenly, she halted, gasping for breath, and looked back. The house towered menacingly, windows like dark eyes watching her every move. A flicker of light draped across a window on the second floor. Had she imagined it? Or was it a sign? "Ethan. Lily." She called out, her voice raw from fear. Nothing answered except a familiar cackle that seeped into her bones. The ground felt unstable beneath her, and her instincts screamed for her to get away. Yet her children were trapped, potentially lost in that nightmare. Was it worth the risk? Torn, Jessica stood poised on the precipice of decision. The moon sank lower, shadows shifting around her, as if the very earth was waiting for her next move. Then a figure appeared at the window, a tiny silhouette, gleaming in the moonlight. "Come back. We're here." Her heart swelled. They were alive. Without thinking, Jessica turned and ran back toward the house, the door creaking open as if welcoming her in. Inside, the shadows deepened, swirling around her. She glanced back, but the front door had shut, sealing her in. The chilling atmosphere wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, stifling her thoughts. "Ethan. Lily." She cried again, spirit defiant despite the rising panic. The laughter returned, growing louder, mingled with soft cries. It surrounded her, leaving no escape. Clutching her head against the overwhelming noise, she stumbled toward the staircase, a gut feeling pulling her upwards. Did her children hide in the attic? Was that where the voices were most potent, drifting through the air like wisps of smoke? Each step echoed, a drumbeat of urgency against the growing silence. At the top of the stairs, she hesitated. A door stood ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hall, pulsating like a heartbeat. "Mommy!" The call was a whisper now, a glimmer of hope wrapped in dread. A figure darted inside, a flicker of movement that made her stomach drop. Jessica moved toward it, a mix of fear and determination surging through her veins. She reached for the doorknob, but as her fingers brushed the cool metal, a bone-chilling wail erupted from the closet down the hall. "Join us, we never left," the voices chimed in a miniature chorus. Heart racing, she turned her head toward the sound. "What are you?" But even as she questioned, the cacophony grew louder, no longer playful, but desperate and demanding. The air thickened with dread. Would she find her children? Or was this an illusion, a trap set by whatever evil had taken root in her home? A surge of anger ignited within her. She would not be a coward. Summoning her courage, she threw open the door. And chaos erupted. Nothing could prepare her for what she would find inside, what awaited her in that room. Would she unearth the truth, or was she stepping right into a greater nightmare? The door swung wide, creaking ominously as it revealed an expanse of flickering light. Jessica squinted against the brightness, her heart racing. Was it really her children's laughter echoing in here? Was this the truth she sought, or the remainder of her hope dashed against the walls? Inside the room, shadows danced around like frenzied phantoms. Her breath hitched as she took in the sight: an old nursery, once cheerful but now drenched in despair. The wallpaper peeled like snake skin, revealing a darker layer beneath. Toys lay scattered across the floor, as if a tempest had passed through. The air was thick, suffused with a choking sweetness that clung to her throat. "Mommy." The voice was clearer now, stronger, and it ignited something deep inside her. But it didn't belong to either of her children. It twisted further as it grew closer, a taunting echo, hovering just beyond her grasp. She stepped inside, compelled by that familiar tug in her heart, but dread gnawed at her bones. As she moved forward, the laughter grew, filling the air until it twisted into a sickening cackle. Jessica froze, fighting against the grip of fear threatening to paralyze her. The toys, stuffed animals, dollhouses, colorful blocks, they all seemed to vibrate, pulsating like a heartbeat beneath her feet. She stumbled backward, realizing each item appeared to be staring right at her. The cries morphed into something unrecognizable, a choir of lost children wrapped in diabolical glee. "Mommy! Don't leave us!" The chorus shrieked, rising and falling in terrifying waves. "Where are you?" she screamed, desperation clawing at her. She ran her fingers along the wall, feeling a wetness that sent her heart into a frantic dance. The shadowy figures seemed to reach out like skeletal arms, beckoning her to step deeper into the hellish scene. Self-preservation was screaming at her to get out, but her resolve surged anew. She couldn't let whatever darkness had taken hold of her home win. Every step deeper felt like wading through treacle, each moment seconds stretched into eternity. Suddenly, the mocking laughter extinguished abruptly, plunging her into an eerie silence. It felt wrong. The quiet pressed against her, heavy and thick, leaving her ears ringing. A flicker caught her eye at the far end of the room. A small figure curled into a ball sat in a corner, shrouded in the glow of the single flickering bulb overhead. "Ethan? Lily?" she whispered, dread creeping in as she hesitated. A small head slowly rose. It was neither child that she had been seeking, nor any child at all. The face before her was grotesque, a pale imitation of innocence smeared with something dark and glistening blood. In that moment, clarity pierced through her shock. The too perfect, sweet cadence of the children's laughter, their cries for help. It was a trap, a lure to draw her deeper into the darkness. With a sudden clarity, she turned to flee. But the shadows stirred, twisting and writhing, filling her escape route. The laughter erupted again, a frenzied chorus that clawed at her sanity, filling her mind with chaos. "Mommy! Stay with us forever!" They shrieked, the voices melding together, each shriek a dagger to her heart. Each step forward felt futile. The darkness shifted and danced, closing in. She could feel them, could feel their cold fingers brushing against her back, the icy grip of despair tightening. As she pushed against the shadows, she understood this was not just a battle for her children but for her very soul. And whatever unholy force was entwining itself in her life was just getting started. Jessica bolted for the door, glancing back once more, caught in a web of fear and hope. "I will find you, I swear it," she vowed into the darkness, before forcing her trembling hands on the doorknob. But just as her fingers gripped the metal, a voice, deep and eerie, spoke from the shadows. "You can't leave, not yet." The door creaked ominously, refusing to budge. The walls seemed to breathe, and Jessica realized the house itself was alive. Could she ever escape? Or would she be consumed, lost in the sinister embrace of a haunting that never truly let her go? Jessica's fingers twitched on the doorknob, cold sweat pooling in her palms as terror crackled through her veins. The shadows loomed larger, bent on wrapping around her, snaring her within their dark clutch. It felt as though the very fabric of the room thrummed with malice, the air thickening into a suffocating fog. "Stay with us," the whisper twisted through the air, thickly veiled in menace, beckoning her into a trap so deceitful and unfair that it churned her stomach. "Please," she begged into the encroaching gloom, the plea barely making its way past her lips. The silence that followed felt oppressive, immensely heavy, until it shattered with the cackling joy of that maddening laughter again. In the corner of her eye, the grotesque figure remained still, but it was not alone anymore. Forms began to materialize around its shadowy children, faces twisted in mock joy and horror. Their eyes glinted with something wicked, reflecting the darkness around them. Walls seemed to pulse with their horrific glee, forming a circle, trapping her in the nursery of nightmares. "Mommy, we just want to play," they chimed, the collective voice sending vibrations of dread shooting up her spine. Jessica's heart raced, each beat pounding in her ears like a war drum. She needed to escape, but the shadows writhed like a living entity, lacing themselves with the secrets of the house. Her resolve was collapsing, each breath feeling stolen by the impending horror, but a sliver of defiance sparked within her. "No!" she yelled, forcing her trembling legs to move. Choking back the terror, she twisted the doorknob hard. Nothing. Panic surged through her, debilitating and primal. She pulled and pushed on the door, wrestling it like a raging animal. "Let me go. Let me out." Her voice was raw, desperation laid bare as dread clawed at her throat. The shadows surged in waves, a tide of despair and insanity. They murmured sweet nothings, trying to tear at her mind, twisting the truths of her life into malevolent lies. Images of her children flickered through her thoughts, faces smiling, eyes glinting with such warmth that it seemed a cruel mockery now. But beneath the chaos, one thought cut clean through, a determination to protect them. She couldn't be lost to this malevolence. "I will not let you take me," she screamed, surprising herself with the strength of her shout. "I will find my children." With newfound fury, she shoved her shoulder against the door, determined to break through. The shadows hissed and shrieked, their laughter transforming into a cacophony of rage, bouncing off the walls and striking at her like a physical force. The door suddenly jolted under her weight, creaking an inch in response. Hope surged as she braced herself, pushing harder, ready to fight against the dark. Then a frigid hand shot forth from the darkness, gripping her wrist with an ice-cold grasp. Jessica screamed, twisting away, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out the chaos around her. She felt her skin burn, the bite of the shadows deepening as they clung to her. "Stay with us forever." The warped voices echoed, laced with madness, a nightmarish chant that pulled at the edges of her fraying sanity. Her vision blurred, the room twisting into a horrible swirl, all joy stripped away, leaving her stranded in terror. Just then, a flicker in the darkness captured her attention, a sagging shelf, teetering with the force of something unseen. From that threshold of despair, Jessica felt a sliver of hope. If she could reach it, perhaps it could provide her the strength to break free, but the shadows blocked her way, swirling, descending like a storm. Their clawed hands darted at her, as she braced herself and lunged toward the shelf. As she reached out, something whispered directly in her ear, chilling her to her core, "You'll never escape, they are mine, and now so are you." She gasped, heart racing at the twisted promise, as darkness closed in around her once more. The shadows howled, the laughter intensifying, and she realized she was running out of time. Could she break free from the talons of this sinister force? What price would she pay to save her children from their eternal grasp? In the darkness, something shifted ominously, and the shadows loomed larger, hungry for her fear, eager for her surrender. Jessica's hand brushed against the rough wood of the shelf, her fingers trembling with desperation. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the shadows swirling closer, whispering sweet nightmares into her ears. Panic clawed at her throat, squeezing every ounce of air from her lungs. She was trapped. "Mommy." The ghostly children sang again, their voices drumming through her mind like a twisted lullaby. Their faces, once innocent, were now painted with malice, their smiles razor-sharp, cutting through the shadows. "Play with us. Forever." "No." She shouted, fear and rage bubbling to the surface. She steeled herself, focusing on the shelf, its contents obscured by darkness. She had to reach it. She pushed forward, forcing her body to move, heart pounding like a war drum of defiance. But as her fingertips brushed the edge, an icy jab pierced her side. The shadows were not just clinging to her, they were clawing, tearing at her very essence. She gasped at the sharp pain, but her resolve blazed hotter. Her hand closed around a heavy object, glassy and textured beneath her palm. With a surge of strength, she whirled around, swinging the shelf's contents at the nearest shadowy figure. The glass shattered, bursting like thunder as it met the dark figure with a sickly crunch. The chilling laughter stumbled to an abrupt end, replaced by a series of hissing whispers. "Why would you hurt us?" The shadows recoiled, removing their grip for a moment, just long enough for Jessica to gasp for breath, her lungs tinged with the metallic taste of dread. "Because you want to take my children," she screamed, the newly ignited fire in her soul urging her forward. She moved quickly, darting around the room, her mind a frantic kaleidoscope of thoughts, a desperate plan forming in the chaos. With shadows retreating, she bolted toward the door, but before she could reach it, an unseen force slammed against her. She gasped, falling to her knees, the weight of something dead pressing down on her chest. The grotesque figure loomed above her, its face a ghastly mockery of humanity, eyes shining with unholy delight. "Little girls like you don't get to make the rules," it snarled, leering down at her, the shadows bristling with fury. Jessica's heart twisted in terror, but she refused to relent. She could feel the presence of her children, trapped somewhere far away, calling to her through the thick veneer of darkness. Their voices intertwined, echoing with love and fear. "Mommy, help us." She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms as adrenaline wrapped around her like a shield. The twisted figure watched, its ghastly grin widening, enjoying her suffering. But it only fueled her resolve further. With a powerful roar, she surged against the oppressive weight, pushing herself up, forcing the darkness back. "I want to let you keep them." She roared again, and with every ounce of strength, she focused on the door. Through the haze of shadows, she sprinted, desperation igniting her strength. But just as she reached for the knob again, the shadows erupted, a chorus of anguished cries rallying behind her. They lashed out, grasping at her with icy fingers, dragging her back into their realm. "Stay with us. You can never leave." They screamed, their chilling voices drowning out her resolve. Jessica felt herself slipping as the darkness enveloped her, and the world around her twisted into a grotesque panorama of terror. A single thought pulsed through her mind as she fought to hold on. If she was consumed, what would become of her children? She fought against the dark tide, clawing at the air, and suddenly her fingers brushed against something solid. A glimmer. A light that broke through the suffocating darkness. "What is this?" she whispered, her heart racing with curiosity and hope, as the shadows shrieked in horror around her. Could this light be a way out? Or was it just another trap, as she grasped at it, the shadows tightened their grip, echoing their maddening laughter, threatening to pull her into a vortex of despair once more. Jessica's breath hitched with a wave of uncertainty. The darkness pressed closer, squeezing her with such force she could barely think. She had to decide. Would she plunge into the light, or would the shadows swallow her whole? Tension coiled tightly around her heart as the struggle continued, the fate of her children dancing just out of reach. What awaited her in the flickering light? Would it be salvation or another layer of horror? The light pulsed softly, beckoning with an almost magnetic pull. Jessica hesitated, terror clawing at her mind as the shadows howled in rage. They twisted and writhed like serpents, their anguished faces morphing into grotesque shapes, leering at her with eyes brimming with hatred. "You'll regret that." They shrieked, their voices a dissonant symphony of malice. With every second, she felt the dark tendrils constricting tighter, threatening to suffocate her. She couldn't last much longer. "I have to choose," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. The light shimmered, casting fleeting glimmers that illuminated her surroundings. Memories flickered across her mind, birthday parties, laughter, her children's tiny hands wrapped around her fingers. A surge of determination swept through her. They were out there, somewhere, waiting for her. "Hold on, babies. Mommy's coming," she cried, her voice like a lighthouse cutting through the storm. She didn't care what the light truly was, all that mattered was escaping the dark horrors. She threw herself toward it, heart racing, blood pounding in her ears. The shadows screeched, a sound so raw it twisted her insides. Ice-cold fingers clawed at her, but she barreled through, driven by that single-minded need to save her children. With one desperate leap, she dived into the light. For a breathless moment, everything went white. She felt weightless, free, as though she was breaking the chains that bound her to the nightmares. Then she landed on something solid, her body hitting the ground with a thud. Gasping, she opened her eyes. She was no longer in the suffocating darkness. She was in an empty room, the air sweetened by the scent of old wood and dust. Only sparse rays of dim light seeped through grimy windows, illuminating peeling paint on the walls, revealing the true horror of where she had landed. It wasn't just a room, it was a forgotten basement, hidden away and untouched for years. Shelves lined with cobweb-covered jars glimmered faintly in the light. Curious shapes formed in the shadows, and the echoes of faint laughter skittered through the air, mingling with the damp, stale scent of decay. The realization hit her. She wasn't free. She had simply traded one nightmare for another. "Mommy?" A small voice called out, piercing the heavy silence. A surge of hope ignited in her chest. "Kids! Where are you?" she shouted, swinging around in a panic. "Mommy! Help us!" The voices grew closer, terrors wrapped in innocent tones, tugging at her heart. But as she stepped forward, the floor creaked ominously beneath her. It was warning her, a protest against moving deeper into the room. Suddenly, the jars began to rattle. A low hum filled the air, and shadows crept along the walls, gathering like dark clouds ready to storm. "You shouldn't have come here," an echo warned, ethereal whispers rising in intensity. "Your children are ours." Jessica's heart raced again, panic surging anew. She couldn't lose them. She wouldn't. But how could she fight the very thing that held them captive? She felt a whisper of cold snaking up her spine just as the laugh echoed once more, unearthly and full of delight, mocking her hope. "Playtime is just beginning." The walls closed in, and the shadows danced, vibrant and chaotic, taunting her. She reached out toward the murmurs of her children, the glimmers of their hope entwined with the tightening darkness. The laughter morphed into a dark symphony, each note a dagger aimed at her heart. Would she succumb to the darkness again, or could she rescue her children from this new realm of horror? Jessica felt the ground shift beneath her, the air thinned, and dread swept over her once more. What lurked in the shadows? What price would she pay for their freedom? With a single thought burning in her mind, she proclaimed against the rising darkness, "I won't give up." But as the echoes of that promise faded, the shadows lunged, threatening to consume her whole. What sinister secrets lay in the corners of this twisted basement? Would the children be lost forever? The shadows lunged forward like a pack of ravenous wolves. Their howls pierced through Jessica's resolve, twisting her thoughts as cold fingers wrapped around her ankles, dragging her back into the darkness. The cacophony of laughter morphed, growing sinister, as the sound echoed more grotesquely off the walls. "Mommy!" The cries were louder now, drowning in the chaotic symphony of dread. Each plea sent needles of fear deep into her heart. She couldn't let that fear consume her. She had to find her children. She locked onto their voices, focusing through the unsettling haze. Jessica stumbled forward, pushing against the shadows swirling around her. "Stay with me. I'm coming." Her voice trembled, but she pressed on, the shrill laughter growing more maniacal with each heartbeat. Then she saw a flickering light far in the corner of the basement. It pulsed in rhythm with her heart, an otherworldly beacon in the encroaching blackness. The kids might be there. She gasped, battling through the gripping darkness toward it. The air felt thick, like trying to wade through a river of molasses. Her movements felt slow, heavy, as if the shadows wanted to ensnare her, to crush her spirit. She strained her ears to detect the soft sounds of her children, any sign of their presence. But all she heard was the maddening laughter, echoing and resounding with a dark joy. As she reached the light, hope surged. It emanated from an old, dusty lamp sitting precariously on a rickety table. The light flickered, revealing more jars, their insides moving under a viscous liquid. Each jar housed something writhing, trapped, but not quite visible. It sent a shiver down her spine. "Jessica," the melodious whispers spiraled around her, coaxing. "Join us, play with us forever. Go away." She shouted, but her voice felt feeble, lost in the noise. She grabbed the lamp and shook it, hoping to steady its flicker. The shadows recoiled slightly at the sudden brightness, but they didn't retreat far. They clawed and pulled, and she felt a surge of anger take hold. She wouldn't let them win. There was a heavy wooden door behind the table, partially ajar. Jessica clambered toward it, shoving the table aside. The shadows screamed, a chorus of rage that rattled the jars, each one glimmering ominously. "Stop!" they shrieked, their voices filling her ears with layers of anguish. But in that moment, desperation propelled her forward. Gritting her teeth, she shoved the door open. A chill swept through her, as if stepping into a freezer. The darkness here felt different, thicker, like a fog that weighed down heavily. But it held a new scent, the earthy smells of damp leaves and something sweetly rotten. "Mommy, in here." The calls echoed clearly, vibrating with urgency. They came from deep within the icy chamber. With no more time to waste, Jessica took a deep breath and plunged through the door. The darkness wrapped around her like a shroud, suffocating, but she pressed forward. She could almost visualize her children huddled together, shivering in fear, waiting for her. Then, just a step into the room, the door slammed shut behind her. Panic ignited, she spun around to find herself faced with a wall of shadows. They merged together, reshaping into the figures of her children. "Mommy, why did you leave us?" Their voices dripped with sorrow, twisted and broken. Their faces were pale, hollowed. "You promised to protect us. Now, you'll join us, forever." "No!" she screamed, horror clawing at her heart. "What have you done to them?" The shadows crept closer, wrapping her in a vice, whispering secrets and lies, promising safety in surrender. She fought back the darkness grip, her strength dwindling. Just when she thought all hope was lost, the swirling shadows momentarily withdrew, revealing something glimmering at her feet. A locket. Her locket. The one she always wore, which held pictures of her children. Why do you have this?" she gasped, reaching for it. "Would you sacrifice yourself to save them?" A voice sneered in the darkness. Choose wisely. With heart pounding and tears in her eyes, she could feel the shadows closing in again, trapping her in a whirlwind of despair and dread. What would she be willing to lose? What price must she pay to free her children from the grips of the sinister? In that moment of desperation, a sinister truth began to surface. Perhaps the darkest secret of all was still waiting for her. Jessica gasped as the shadows whispered promises of freedom buried deep within the swirling darkness. The ghostly images of her children hovered around her like wraiths, encouraging her to stay. "Mommy, we need you. It's so cold here." They sounded so innocent, but the flicker of dread in their voices twisted her heart in knots. "No," she cried, her spirit igniting with renewed vigor. "I want to let you take them." The shadows recoiled slightly, their grasp loosening, and in that moment of clarity, Jessica's resolve solidified. She couldn't be tempted to join their haunting dance or succumb to their vile whispers. She had come too far. With sudden ferocity, she grabbed the locket at her feet. Its warmth radiated through her palms, clouding her mind in memories of love-warm embraces, laughter melting the winter air, and the soft, sweet sound of her children's voices calling her name. "I will find you, no matter what," she shouted, gripping the locket tightly. The figures around her shrieked as if her words ignited a tempest in the air. "You cannot save them," they hissed, the air becoming electric with rage. The shadows surged forward again, menacing and furious, but Jessica didn't stand back. She met their dark charge with unwavering determination. "I choose my children," she declared, voice breaking through the onslaught. "I choose to fight." The locket glowed brighter, resonating with an ancestral strength, forcing the shadows to recoil. A beam of light exploded from it, slicing through the darkness like a hot knife through butter. "No!" The shadows howled, untethered and disoriented. With relentless resolve, Jessica twisted the locket in her hand and unleashed the light, throwing it into the abyss. The glimmering energy surged around the room, illuminating the dark corners and piercing through the veil that encapsulated her children. "Mommy!" came their voices, clearer now, filled with fear and hope. Jessica's heart raced as she charged through the light, releasing a torrent of power that repelled the shadows. As the sweet warmth expanded, the semblance of her children solidified from the haze of darkness. "Mommy!" they cried again, their arms reaching out, filled with love and trust. The shadows writhed in wrath, trying to snatch them back, but it was too late. "It's time to go home," Jessica shouted, her voice joining the light as she lunged for her children, pulling them into her embrace. They felt real, warm and alive, freedom flooding her senses. "Don't look back," she urged, navigating through the swirling chaos of dark and light now colliding in a violent storm. The shadows hissed, clawing at them, but with determination rooted in love, they pushed onward. With one final thrust, they broke through the remaining darkness, propelled into the vacant basement strewn with cobwebs. Jessica stumbled onto the floor, gasping for breath and cradling her children to her chest. They were safe. Cautiously, she cast a glance at the door that led back into the dark. The shadows were still there, swirling and seething, but they would not pursue, too disoriented in their defeat. The way out was clear. She stood, heart still hammering from the intensity, and turned to her children nestled in her arms, their faces alive with warmth and innocence. "Let us go home, you two," she whispered, a wave of relief crashing over her. Hand in hand, they made their way back through the remnants of that cursed basement, sealing the door behind them, leaving the twisted darkness to face the light. And as they emerged into the fresh, cool air of Maple Creek, the sun glistened with a promise of new beginnings, dissipating the suffocating weight of fear. She had fought the darkness, not just for herself but for them. They had conquered that hell together. Jessica looked at Ethan and Lily, joy flooding her chest. "Always remember," she said softly. "Together, we can face anything." With courage renewed, the family walked hand in hand back home into the light of a new day, ready to embrace the possibilities ahead. And from the shadows, the whispers faded into silence, a reminder of a dark chapter now closed forever. This is your moment to act. If you enjoyed this spine-chilling tale, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to support the channel and keep the algorithm happy. Flood that comment section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Jessica's journey and her harrowing encounter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.